Excellent!
I appreciate all of the faith that you place in me.
All right, I've emptied my bladder.
Every day. I'm glad that you've taken a pee break in between the two halves of the show.
I always do.
And
sometimes earlier.
And that is what? I don't know what that is. Hello, everyone, and welcome to Awesome Hardware. This is the show that Kyle and I do every week on Wednesdays. No, Tuesdays. I'm terrible at this.
At 1:50.
Every week on
3 a.m.
Tuesdays at 5:30 p.m. Pacific time on Twitch.tv. Awesome Hardware. However, we're going to start off today's show with some announcements. And the first announcement is that I'm not going to be here for the next 2 weeks. Yes. I'm sorry. I'm sorry, everyone. I apologize. We've been alluding to this. We've been kind of warning you about this. But now it is upon us. And indeed, Kyle is on his own for Awesome Hardware for the next 2 weeks. He's told me that he has planned the most extravagant, elaborate shows ever with lasers and like animal, like tigers.
Are you gonna be doing
tigers with lasers?
LSD on the show? What the hell's going on?
Lots of drug use and that kind of thing. It's gonna be absolutely fantastic.
He's absolutely right.
But yeah, so I'm going to be gone, so sorry about that. If you're actually watching my channel much, I do have some videos planned out, so you'll be seeing some videos. I actually have a couple build videos I'll be posting there. So those are going to be great. So stay tuned, stick around. You'll see all that good stuff, and it'll be great. And then the upshot of this, of me being gone, is that the second half of this trip is all about Computex. So I'm going to be there. I'm going to bring you guys the live, straight dopity whackness from Computex. Right, Kyle?
Yes.
I don't know. I didn't know if you wanted to chime in or anything like that.
Yeah,
that's going to be fantastic.
I might do some reconnaissance from my abode.
Okay, Kyle's going to do some Computex recon.
Yeah,
but
hopefully I'll get a guest on or two, and we'll still, excuse me, continue the show. Because the show must go on. The show must go on. Yeah. That is what really counts. Yep. But all right, beginning of the show stuff, beer check. I'm drinking a Stone Imperial Russian Stout, which I'm actually nearly finished with. It's not hitting me nearly hard enough. I've started on my second Josephsbrau Hefeweizen. Josephsbrau? Josephsbrau. Hefeweizen from, where's that from? It's from Trader Joe's.
Oh, Trader Joe's. Fantastic. So thanks you guys all for joining the show today.
Cheers.
By the way, let's start off with some headlines because we have a fantastic show. On my half of the show, which you're about to watch, we're going to be talking about AMD's HBM, high bandwidth memory. Also a little bit of news from Intel on their Broadwell desktop CPUs. Yep. Kyle and I will be sword fighting as always. And then the second half of the show is really well planned. Really, really well planned.
No, it's not.
Everything is just... It's going to be precision. Yep. Now, you're watching the second half of the show right now. If you're watching us live, thank you guys so much for joining us and sticking with us. But if you're not watching live and you haven't watched the first half, you can check that out on Kyle's channel, which is youtube.com/awesomesaucenews.
No, it's not.
Yes, it is.
Oh, okay, yeah.
I'm giving them the URL. His channel's called Awesome Sauce Network.
I didn't hear the URL
part. I finally had this right, and you immediately tell me that it's wrong.
Can you blame me? It's force of habit.
That is true. Typically
yes. But go ahead, check out part one. We talk about some cool stuff.
They are right. There's glare. Actually, I know exactly what's going on right now. That's
glasses?
crazy. No, it's the sunset. That is... See, guys?
What's it glaring on? The background?
It's the sun coming through over there.
But I mean...
And hitting the lens right there. That is a genuine lens flare that you're watching right now.
I don't even...
Right there, see?
Can't, no. Oh, yeah, I do.
Yeah.
It's right on your boob.
It's right there.
It's right on your boob.
It's right on boo.
It's a boob.
That is... See, Michael Bay is actually our camera operator today.
Yeah.
So we got lens flares.
But he walked out on us.
Yeah. No, honestly, guys, it's weird right now, but that's probably going to go away within the next few minutes, so hopefully. I'm not going to do anything about it.
Yeah.
All right, we're going to continue the news segment, though. Actually, no, we're not, because it's totally not even prepared. I know what I can do, though.
Wait, okay.
Kyle, you want to talk about lower thirds? Oh, no, talk about Steve.
Steve, yes. So our good buddy Steve, in case you missed it in my half of the show, is doing a charity stream for Extra Life. It's a really good organization for kids who are sick and they're in the hospital and they're just bored out of their minds. Could you imagine being a kid in a hospital? That would suck. Unless you had video games. So that's kind of what this organization does. They bring video games to kids in need who are suffering and stuff. But it's going to be
it's also a fundraiser, right?
It's going to be a fundraiser type event involving Grand Theft Auto 5 on PC. And there will be a number of people that you've probably heard of at some point or another that will be participating in this stream. It's going to be this really big thing. I don't want to talk it up too much, and I can't reveal a lot at this point. But
Steve's really excited, though.
Steve's super excited, and he's getting me amped for it too. So
Steve's more excited about that than he is about his new job at Monoprice.
Yes, Steve is now working at Monoprice. I hope everyone
that too.
Spread the seed. Don't spread your seed, but spread the seed of knowledge that Steve is doing great things.
You can't tell people not to spread their seed, Kyle. It is something that is biologically instilled upon all of us.
I give them the right. Of course, they should exercise the right to spread their seed. I just didn't want to demand it of them.
Spread your seed with
tact. It happen naturally.
Be
tactful.
Just be considerate when spreading your seed. Be like, hey, can I spread my seed here? And if they say no, then just walk away.
Yes.
Okay.
Have a seedery plan.
Yes. IEPY Zoom. Monoprice.
Monoprice. Yep.
But hey, this 4K monitor I'm using right here is from Monoprice.
Ayo.
All right, but tech news is what we're about to talk about. In case I didn't bring up that tech news lower thirds for long enough. Hey, news.
News.
Fabulous. We're gonna start off talking about AMD.
Okay.
Because there's lots of stuff to talk about with AMD. All right, now here's the deal, guys. As mentioned at the beginning of the show, I am leaving on a trip. And I have lots of stuff going on, so whereas I have read this article and see all the words in this article, that's why I'm scrolling down to show you all the words in this article. I'm going to try to run down this for you. This article is from techreport.com, and actually what I'm also going to do, bada bing, is posted in chat. If you guys actually want to take a look and read it and give yourself maybe a better understanding than maybe what I'm about to give you. So HBM. Here's the number one thing I think about HBM. They need to change the stupid name. HBM stands for high bandwidth memory. And think of like fast Ethernet. Do you remember fast Ethernet?
No.
No, you don't. You're too young. Fast Ethernet was so what do we have now? Gigabit. Mm-hmm. Or 10 gigabit, right?
Yeah.
So before that, you had 10 or you had 10 100. 100 was labeled fast. So when they originally had 10 megabit and then they had 100 megabit and then they went to 1000 megabit or gigabit, when they went from 10 megabit and they had now it's 100, let's call it fast. And guess what? It's not fast anymore.
Nope.
And guess what? High bandwidth memory might seem like high bandwidth right now, but it's not going to be high bandwidth forever. So anyway, that's my first complaint about that, is that they need to change the stupid name.
Future-proof your name, people.
To something that's a little bit less generic, like high bandwidth memory. But all right, let me try to explain to you guys what high bandwidth memory is, how it works with GPUs, and how it's going to benefit, hopefully, all of us soon. This is the successor to GDDR5 memory. Now, if you guys understand the basics kind of like a computer, you got a CPU, you got your memory, you got other parts that all work together, motherboard. Graphics card's kind of the same way. You got your graphics card, you got your GPU, graphics processor, and then the graphics processor has memory as well. On most graphics cards, I want to pull one, they're all back there, that's okay. On most graphics cards, they're kind of scattered around the actual GPU, and the way they've dealt with memory limitations when it comes to bandwidth is by adding more memory controllers to the GPU itself.
Right.
So that's how you go from a 64-bit interface to a 128-bit interface to a 256-bit interface to all the way up to like a 512-bit interface, which is what, for instance, the AMD R9 290 and 290X use. Mm-hmm. Lots of bandwidth for the GPU to talk back and forth to the memory, which is cool. But you can't really keep scaling that up. You can't go to 1024-bit memory. I mean, you could, but you're dealing with desktop graphics cards. You're dealing with a limited amount of space, a limited amount of power available, and you just can't keep scaling that out that way. So,
and there's a downside for having it spread out in that fashion, right?
Yeah, it's taking up more space on the board.
It takes longer time for data to go, the latency, electricity to go from A to B.
Potentially, yes. And definitely the way they've dealt with HBM is going to improve upon that.
Right.
So the reason they started developing high bandwidth memory, and they've been developing this for quite a while, at least 3, 4, 5 years. I want to say longer than that. Sorry, I didn't write that down specifically. But what they realized early on, and AMD was the first to introduce GDDR5, by the way, as is pointed out in this article. They introduced it originally with the Radeon HD 4870. They almost as soon as GDDR5 was kind of like standardized across the board, they started working on this HBM stuff. And what they realized was that the GPU is going to need more memory and more bandwidth to access that memory, but if we keep scaling it up the same way we have been, there's going to be too much space used on the motherboard by like more and more chips.
Right.
And then also that we're basically not going to have enough power to deliver to it, and there's not going to be enough space. So HBM, high bandwidth memory, has 3 essential components. So there's the main chip that the high bandwidth memory is connected to, and what we're going to be seeing the soonest is a GPU that this is done with. But since it's AMD and they also make APUs, for example, they could easily also integrate this to an APU, and we're expecting to see that soon as well.
Right.
Or even a CPU. Or SoC. I mean, I guess some of these terms kind of blend together. If you're talking about a CPU plus a GPU, when does that become an SoC? Anyway, that's a different discussion.
Right.
So there's that. There's the main chip. There's 1 or more DRAM stacks, which is the memory itself, and then there's an underlying silicon wafer known as an interposer. Mm-hmm. And there's an image here that
it's kind of like a middleman between the PCB and the actual memory.
So you can see here the purple indicated here is the CPU or the GPU. The gray on the bottom is the interposer, which is basically just a layer that connects these all and has traces laid out between them for the communication in between. Mm-hmm. The reason they're doing it this way is because actually just manufacturing these stacked silicon layers on top of each other would be much, much more cost intensive and just a lot harder to do. So by using this interposer in between, they're able to effectively stack the memory on top of the CPU or GPU without physically putting it on top of the CPU or GPU, but still giving you effectively the same level of connectivity. So here's kind of a side view of it. Now this is the second thing that they're doing here with high bandwidth memory is they are stacking memory. And this is something that we started to see kind of recently with like SSDs.
Right.
And they're taking memory and they're going from the 2D planar layout where you have columns and rows to access any given thing, and they're just stacking those on top of each other and coming up with different ways to actually access all the way up through the stacks. So here on the bottom they have a logic die, and that logic die is then controlling any given number of stacks of memory up on top of it. And then they have these connections that go down between them that connect it to the interposer and then connect it over to the CPU or the GPU. Now, what is like? So what's the upshot here? What's the benefit? I guess is what we're dealing with. So here's a comparison of GDDR5 and HBM. So the bus width, for example, 32-bit on the GDDR5. This is for a single DRAM package. HBM 1024 because you have all the DRAM cores connected to that base die. Now the clock speed is something that might initially strike you as weird because the clock speed is actually much lower. We're talking 500 megahertz on the DRAM for HBM, whereas GDDR5 we typically see right now going to 1750 megahertz, and then you see that multiplied by 4 because they have 4, like they quad pump it, and they usually get, the effective memory of 6,000 or 7,000 or 8,000 or whatever the heck they tell you it is.
Yeah.
Bandwidth here is where you can see the main benefit of stacking it this way. So before you have up to 28 gigabytes per second per chip, now you have over 100 gigabytes per second per stack.
Yeah.
And then voltage has also been lowered from 1.5 volts to 1.3 volts, so you have some power savings there as well.
So theoretically, like if you scroll up to that little image there, like it looks like there's apparently, like I think I read a bit of the article, there are these holes in each of the DRAM dies, and that's where data is traveling through. So you're able to pass data from one die directly to the one below it, and they're like right next to each other. They're stacked up right on top of each other, so they have a really short distance to travel. So that means it's moving data a lot faster, but it's also requiring less power to do it.
Yeah.
Because with the old school trace layout, where it kind of looks more like a suburban home with all of these dies spread out adjacent to each other and not stacked. You have longer traces that require more power to go back and forth. And so I think they were saying you get like almost half of the TDP on like a 390X, for example, that uses this technology as opposed to current gen hardware that don't implement HBM.
Where did you get these numbers?
From the article.
From the article?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, it's like literally like I think it was half. So they were saying that you could.
Well, let's go to benefits of HBM. That's what I was going to move on to.
I'm not sure if it was a Tech Report article or if it was like PC Perspective.
There were a few articles on this one.
Right.
And like I said before, I haven't had time to get the breadth of knowledge of the entire internet on this, so there's probably a bit more information that we're going to cover right here. But I thought the Tech Report article laid it all out pretty well as far as just kind of an explanation, especially if you have no prior knowledge of this.
Right.
We started hearing about this back when we went for the Hawaii launch event that AMD put on in Hawaii, which was that a year and a half, 2 years ago?
I think so.
So long ago now.
I know.
Remember
Where does the time go?
Remember our time in Hawaii, Kyle?
It was pretty awesome.
The crashing of the waves.
The caressing of the cheek.
The luau.
The one on my face, too.
We danced until the
sun set and the wine was gone.
And then Chris Perillo was there and he kept vlogging. Okay, so the benefits of HBM is what we wanted to move on to here and talk a little bit about next. Obviously, or maybe, I don't know how obvious it is, surface area.
Yep.
So you're stacking the memory on top of each other, and this chart is pretty straightforward. We're looking at 28 millimeters by 24 millimeters for a gig of GDDR5, whereas we're looking at 5 millimeters by 7 millimeters for a gig of high bandwidth memory, or 94% less surface area.
Nice.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah.
Now, another cool thing about this is that since it packs more bits into the same space, we're looking at a significant amount of power savings.
That's what I said.
And that's what you were talking about.
Yep.
You're right. I think you were just giving percentages, though. All right, so
no, the article I read had percentages.
All right, so if we're talking about the performance per watt, which is often a good way of boiling down efficiency, with the prior GDDR5 memory, you got about 10.66 gigabytes per second per watt of data transferred. HBM, over 35 gigabytes per second per watt, which is more than triple the amount of data transferred per watt. That's a pretty heavy amount of power savings. Now, the other thing here is that we're talking specifically about the memory here. So the GPU itself might still be crazy power hungry or that sort of thing. Who knows?
Right.
We're really not sure yet. But going back to the article, just to kind of run down the rest of it for you guys, we can see kind of a layout here. Now, the other thing I think is kind of interesting here is if you compare these two images, the image on top is the HBM memory integration, and it's all integrated onto the same area with the CPU, which also means that cooling solutions for these types of cards might actually be like take, for example, a 290X.
Do we need a visual aid?
All right, look, here's a 290X right here.
Okay.
And this 290X has an NZXT cooler on it. What is this? The Kraken G10, I believe, with the Kraken K. I can't remember model numbers of everything, but this was a very effective solution for this graphics card because the GPU got damn hot, and the reference cooler did not do a fantastic job of cooling it. Now, swapping this cooler onto here and adding liquid cooling greatly improved the temperatures that the GPU was running at, and also allowed me to overclock it more. However, it also removed any effective cooling from the memory, and the memory is scattered all around here. It's right here. The memory is up here. The memory is along here.
Now, if we're looking, cool that a lot more effectively if it's all in the same place.
People can't even see this because I can't even. I'm still showing that thing. The memory is all scattered around, right? All around there. Now, if you have this HBM thing going on and it's all in the die, then dropping this single liquid cooler on here is going to be cooling the GPU as well as all that memory. I think that's kind of cool. I mean, if nothing else, little off-the-shelf deals like this I mean, granted, what we've seen so far with the Fiji card that AMD's been teasing is already water-cooled.
Right.
But maybe that's why it's already water-cooled, is because they can use the efficiency of water cooling concentrated on a smaller area here with this kind of standard size CPU block that's being used, and still get really effective cooling, and you don't have to worry about other componentry that's laid out around the outside, like memory, for example.
So if you're getting better thermals and you're using less power, in theory, you could also probably hit higher clock speeds.
In theory, yes.
So I mean, it's almost like if the current, like if the 900 series from NVIDIA right now was using HBM, you could probably hit, like all the cards would theoretically be able to run much faster because you're using so much less power and you're generating that much less heat because of it.
In theory.
That's kind of what they're alluding to in this article.
Okay, so that's really about as far as I got on the article itself. They did list some other tricky issues as they described it further down.
NVIDIA's doing this too, right? Eventually, but I think they're behind. They're like a year behind or something like that.
Like, here's why we need frickin' AMD, right?
Yeah, nipping at the heels of
because
Team
even
Green.
if you look at the market situation right now with AMD versus NVIDIA on the GPU side, with AMD versus Intel on the CPU side, I mean, we need AMD to do this sort of thing. Even if AMD, with the benefits of HBM, comes out with whatever Fiji-based GPU that they have, and it's like on par with what NVIDIA has right now, still the integration of that technology is and the benefits that are drawn from it are going to be something that NVIDIA looks at. We already mentioned that AMD was the first to come out with the 4870 that had GDDR5 memory. Mm-hmm. What does every high-end graphics card use now? GDDR5 memory.
Yeah.
You go back to like the AMD FX heyday in like 2005, 2006 when AMD had their FX CPUs and they could actually sell processors for $1,000. Yeah. And they started going multi-core, and they also started integrating the IMC, the memory controller, onto the CPU itself. Both things that Intel kind of scoffed at the time.
They were the first to adopt DDR3 too, I think.
That I'm not positive about, but you could totally be correct.
Okay. I probably.
Yeah. So this is why we need AMD, I think.
I agree.
And
competition.
We need competition among companies for this type of thing. But yeah, other than that, HBM. I mean, there's not a whole lot more to say about the implementation of it. I mean, that's kind of a general overview of kind of how it works, with the memory on top and the GPU and the interposer and all that good stuff. And this is the image that they keep showing.
Before, I'm going to paste this in your segment really quick. That sounds like a euphemism, but it's not.
Oh.
Under, right next to yours. There, click that.
Okay.
This is a PC World article on the exact same thing. If you scroll down, you'll see a mock-up picture of what's rumored to be the 390X water-cooled edition.
Oh, that's already been floating around.
Right, but I mean, I just wanted to point out the way it looks. Keep going. That one.
This.
So look how short it is.
Yes.
I think that has a lot to do with what you were saying, Paul, earlier.
Oh,
it's like, since the memory modules are stacked, you can actually get a much shorter PCB.
I agree.
And cram all that performance in there, which I think is really cool.
Okay, well, that's a good segue to move on to our next topic under the news topic here,
which is
AMD Radeon's Fiji.
Fiji.
And Fiji, and what is Fiji? Now, what you're showing right here in this image is what has been teased as Fiji. Wait, where did it go? There it is. Mm-hmm. That's what we've been shown. Mm-hmm. And there's been Fiji, which AMD has confirmed that is a code name for this new series, this new GPU architecture that they're working on that's going to be integrated into this card. Mm-hmm. And people have assumed that the 390 and 390X, the 300 series from AMD, and this are one and the same. Mm-hmm. Is that true, though?
I don't know.
Let us explore.
Exploration.
Okay.
Engage.
So consider, if you will, this article from sweetclockers.com. This article has been translated, just to point that out to you guys. This article states AMD Radeon Fiji is a Halo product for lovers of luxury and enthusiasts. Granted, this is Google Translate, so this is not sweet clockers. I'm sure in the native languages are they're beautifully put in everything. This is Google Translate, making this sound awkward. No big sellers, but a prestige product in order to strengthen its own brand. AMD's new super hot model Fiji looks to be an equivalent to the GeForce GTX Titan. What? What?
So we're talking more of like a $1,000
Yeah.
around there.
So here's a look at a 295X2 because it's thrown in there because it looks interesting. But here, there's some information here on this Sweet Clockers article. I'm going to post this one in chat too.
Sweet Clockers.
I'm going to do that.
It's because they're from Sweden.
That's translated from Google again.
Sweet.
So what? What? All right, let's step back a little bit, because from the beginning of this year, everyone has been looking forward, hopefully, to whatever the heck NVIDIA or whatever the heck AMD has going on, and obviously looking at their release cycle and the cadence of what they name things, it's expected that they're going to go from a 200 series, 290, 290X all the way down the line to 300 series, 390, 390X, and then all the way down the line. We've even seen confirmation at this point that they've already named the 300 series GPUs that they're going to be rebranding.
Yeah.
Which is kind of stupid and boring, and I don't necessarily like that process, but I kind of understand it. So they're taking like what used to be their $500 card, and now it's their $350 card, and now their $350 card is now their $250 card, and they kind of bump them down the chain.
Which is what they've been doing.
Which is what they've been doing, but it also means if you're buying like their budget card, like you're getting 2-3-year-old hardware. Granted, you're getting powerful hardware at less of a price, and maybe there's some manufacturing improvements that have gone along to improve the efficiency or that sort of thing.
It's got HBM now.
But the expectation has been that whatever AMD is working on right now, they're going to need to launch as their new 290X or whatever. And the 290X never sold for more than, I think, $550.
Yeah.
But according to this article, AMD's actually, maybe they have such an ace up their sleeve right now that like, you know what, this is beyond what we would sell as a 390X.
Mm-hmm.
So they're actually going to take their Fiji stuff and make it something in a completely different tier, kind of like NVIDIA did with the Titan. Because the Titan, there's no number associated. It's just Titan.
Yeah.
Awesome, because it's Titan and it's above everything else.
Right.
Which would fall in line a lot of ways.
They'd probably do something similar with like NVIDIA, how NVIDIA has the Titan X, and then rumored allegedly that they're releasing a 980 Ti, which is the same GPU, but it's just watered down. So I think when a manufacturer like AMD has that powerful card and they have that hardware, they usually have the flagship version and then they cut it down so that they can make cheaper models to fill in the gaps price point.
Indeed.
So they're going the NVIDIA route, which is cool.
And it also falls in line with stuff we've heard from AMD lately. I've heard this directly from AMD Roy, as well as some other articles they've talked about, which is that AMD has gotten to be known as the budget option. It's like, hey, if you're looking for price for performance, go for AMD. But if you want the best of the best, you got to get Intel or you got to get NVIDIA. AMD doesn't like that. They want to reestablish themselves as like, no, we have high-end products as well.
Right.
And so this would fall in line with that. And it also, however, trickles down a little bit. So here's an article that kind of corroborates that from Fudzilla.
Corroborate.
You don't like my fancy words?
It's fancy.
Okay. Which is that AMD Fiji is going to be $850.
No, okay.
Okay.
Well,
so that's less than a Titan, more than a 980 right now, and speculatively more than whatever a 980 Ti might be when it launches.
But knowing NVIDIA, it will probably I would assume that it would outperform or at least be very similar to a Titan X.
This? Or the 780 or the 980 Ti?
No, the AMD's flagship.
So you want the Fiji card to perform better than a Titan X?
At least the same.
At least the same, but this says it's going to be $850.
Right, but that would make the Titan X obsolete, which might be their game.
If it performed better than the Titan X, do you think AMD would price it at $850?
Maybe they just want to.
I don't think they would
take a jab.
I don't think
take
they
a
would.
Stab at NVIDIA.
But rumors prior to now have put the Fiji card or the theoretical 390X at about $800, $799, and this is higher than that.
Isn't the 290 the 295X2? Isn't that like $500 now?
There was a post earlier today. A site had it for $500. Yeah.
Okay, but I mean, it's still even at its normal price. I feel like it's really competitive with the Titan X for its $1,000 price tag.
Yes, that's true. But I mean, you could say there's trade-offs there because NVIDIA would say, well, you're comparing a dual GPU card to a single GPU card.
Yeah.
This is a single GPU card, whatever Fiji is going to be. But let me continue here for just a moment.
Okay.
So according to this Fudzilla article, we're going to have a 4 gig version of the Fiji card originally. They're also going to release an 8 gigabit version of the card in the future. And again, the price here at $850 is more than what was rumored prior. And to me, what that maybe says is that its performance is actually better, or that there's maybe early whatever NVIDIA has card rumors about that performance, and AMD has sensed, oh, maybe this is actually stacking up better than that. And that's why they can maybe sell it for that much. Who knows? But yeah, the point being, this is going to have HBM integrated. It's going to be the first Fiji card, but the Fiji might not actually be a 390X.
Right.
What will the 390X be? I thought I had an article on that, but I don't.
Maybe
the last article that I wanted to pull up here, but I don't have the link to it right now, was a rumor that what the 390X and the 390 might be, which are still supposed to launch at Computex, or so we hear, are refined versions of the Hawaii GPUs.
Okay.
Which are the same GPUs that were used on the 290 and 290X.
Right.
So, who knows?
So as far as we know, this Fiji card at $850 estimated is the only truly new GPU that we'd be seeing from AMD.
It would be the only truly new GPU. It would be using a pretty fantastic new technology in the high bandwidth memory. It might cost more than some people might have been expecting, but hopefully that also means it's going to perform a heck of a lot better.
Right.
And I like that.
Yeah.
The other thing that I guess the upshot would be is that if people are looking forward to a 390 and a 390X, that those might still be coming. But if this is all true, I would expect those to come in maybe at the same price points that the 290 and 290X are right now.
Yeah.
Or maybe not the same, but bumping them back up to like $400 to $500 for the 290X or for a 390X, and maybe $300 to $400 for 390.
Yeah.
And then I'm also kind of like hoping, like NVIDIA works some magic with Maxwell, for example. The Maxwell architecture, they didn't shrink the process, but they still got a lot more performance out of it.
Yeah.
So I'm also kind of hoping that maybe AMD was able to pull a lot more performance out of Hawaii with refinements, and that we might see a well-performing 390X and 390 as well as a Fiji. And that would give AMD a lot more to work with as far as
this excites me just because it's the most expensive AMD single GPU I've seen in forever.
That is true.
That's really what's super exciting.
All right. So there is some information. I hope you guys have learned something from it, or if not, you've at least been directed where you can read other more well-written articles than what we have said here.
Yeah.
And educate yourselves, I suppose.
Yeah.
Or you can just hang out with us, and we'll give you like 70% of what you need to know. Yeah. All right, a few more tech news articles to talk about.
Okay. We are still on your first segment, aren't we?
I know, but that's okay because, like I said, the second half of my show is
pretty slim.
There's not a lot going on there.
All right, cool.
All right, major tech companies send letter decrying. Is that decrying? Decrying.
Is that a word?
Yeah, I know it's a word. I just don't know how to pronounce it. Encryption backdoors to President Obama. All right. So if you guys hadn't heard any of these rumors lately, you probably heard if you watch like Tech Syndicate or that sort of thing. But like the U.S. government wants like tech companies to like build backdoors into their software in order to like allow like the NSA to access it.
That's dumb.
That's dumb. Anyway, this is all ongoing stuff. I mean, depending on how closely you pay to, how close of attention you pay to this sort of thing, you're probably either very aware of it or like, what the heck? But basically, this is one of those examples of like something that's abhorrent enough that like many companies that usually compete with each other have kind of gotten together to say like, hey, this would be stupid if it happened. So it includes Google and Apple. Anytime you got Google and Apple on the same page, you may be like, wait, what are they talking about?
Yeah.
Microsoft, Cisco, Wikimedia, organizations such as the EFF, stupid websites that give you pop-ups when you mouse over words. Fight for the Future, Epic, Demand Progress, Security Experts, blah, blah. They've all joined together to send a letter. Here's a quote from it. Whether you call them front doors or back doors, introducing intentional vulnerabilities into secure products for the government's use will make these products less secure against other attackers. Every computer security expert that has spoken publicly on this issue agrees on this point, including the government's own experts.
Boom! Yeah, shots fired.
I mean, this is pretty much a no-brainer, I think, if you're in our community and you watch and follow the same type of shows and technology and tech news and that sort of thing that we watch.
Yeah.
Like, for me, there's like two main issues. One issue is like the issue of control, and that's what it seems like the government side of this that doesn't really understand the technology wants.
Right.
They want control to be able to say like, oh, we can access anything, and there's nothing that can be like blocked from our ability to like pull the data out and read it and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Oh, Strider says that I said decrying correctly.
Oh, nice.
Excellent.
Well done.
Did I say it again correctly? Decrying?
Decrying.
Okay. The other part of it, though, I mean, and I understand that governments want that, but I also feel like the like reasonable is like, you know, you can't control everything.
Of course.
But then the other side of this is like, look at what's happened recently to some of the faith in like U.S. companies as a result of stuff like the Edward Snowden leaks and all the information that's come out about the NSA and the amount of access that they have to like personal private information, as well as the amount of like mistreatment that's been done with that information as far as accessing it like without warrants in certain situations and that sort of thing. It severely undermines the ability of U.S. tech companies to continue doing business, regardless of what product you make or like how good you do at advertising or like, you know, business in general and like how you fund your business and all that good stuff. All of that, regardless of how good you do it, goes out the window when you're talking to a foreign company. If the foreign company looks and is like, well, if I have to transfer data to you, like on a massive scale or something like that, then I'm basically feeding it to like the U.S. government as well.
Right.
And like my constituency in my country doesn't want to deal with that.
Yeah.
Like I don't know, it's a really bad situation. I think this is the type of request that's being made by people who don't really understand how the technology works and who thinks that they should just have like, oh, well, we're the government, which should be an open cookie jar and we can just reach in and take whenever we want.
They don't see the full implications of how it could backfire on
them. The implications are much more dire than that. And
Or they don't care.
Yeah. Or they don't care. So, you know, this is the type of thing where you hope that the amount of clout and influence that these large companies have goes towards something positive in this circumstance rather than lobbying for their own self-interests or that sort of thing.
Right.
Anyway, wanted to bring that up really quickly in case you guys were familiar with that, and if you haven't already written to your senator, your congressperson, or all that kind of stuff.
Do so immediately.
Do so and tell them, don't be stupid
right.
about the internet. Don't be stupid about encryption, because it hurts everybody. All right.
Everybody and her.
We got one last tech news bit to talk about here. This is from Guru of 3D.com, and this is about Broadwell. Broadwell desktop.
Yay!
And apparently Intel trying to confuse the heck out of people as much as they possibly can.
No.
Right? Because
what?
Broadwell. Okay, so last year Computex, we had the Devil's Canyon launch, which was the Haswell refresh. Haswell had launched a year prior to that at Computex in 2013.
Mm-hmm.
This was, from a lot of people's perspectives, Intel postponing their launch cycle, like delaying it, pushing it back because they weren't dealing with a lot of competition from the AMD side. You could say that. You could just say Intel's dealing with issues on like the manufacturing side and shrinking down their process and all that kind of stuff. But point being, when Devil's Canyon launched, we also had the Z97 motherboards that launched. And when the Z97 motherboards launched, everyone was like, hey, buy a Z97 motherboard, grab your Haswell CPU and drop it in there. You'll be good to go right now. But hey, we also have Broadwell coming.
Right.
So I think originally we were expecting that in like Q4 2014 or maybe Q1 of this year.
Right.
Now we're seeing Broadwell desktop processors just about ready for launch. But there's only 2 of them.
They probably had plans for a lot more initially, and then once they realized it had to get pushed back and it was going to be so close to Skylake, they probably just cut most of them.
Skylake is a new, wait, what is it? It's not a new microarchitecture. I think it's a process shrink.
It's a talk, isn't it?
Yeah. That could totally be wrong. I honestly have zero idea.
I'm pretty sure it's a talk.
I flip the ticks and talks all the time. But all right, so Broadwell, we got 2 chips. We got a desktop Core i5 5675C and a Core i7 5775C.
What?
Because
why?
Desktop processor naming schemes from Intel were not confusing enough already. All right, for one thing, we got a 5 at the end. Because that, you know.
You mean at the beginning?
At the beginning and at the end. The 5 equates it with the next generation. So with Haswell and Devil's Canyon, they were all 4,000, 4770K and 4790K.
Right.
So now this is Broadwell, so it's a 5,000 series.
Yeah.
And then Skylake, I think, is going to be 6,000.
Probably.
When it comes out.
But Haswell E is also 5,000.
But the Skylake stuff, we've already discussed some of the rumored Skylake naming schemes, which they're going back to simple.
Yeah.
And zeros, like a double 0 at the end.
Nice.
Yes, fantastic. But to get us there, we have to first suffer through Broadwell being i5 5675C. There's no way I'm ever memorizing these.
No, 5675.
And i7 5775C.
It's a little bit easier, but still.
Now, Broadwell-based ICs get 4 cores. All right, so very similar. So you got the 5675C is 4-core non-hyper-threaded. 5775 is 4-core with hyper-threading. You get Iris Pro 6200 graphics, which is supposed to be pretty nice. Same memory, standard DDR3 1600. I'm sure they're going to handle overclocked memory quite handily. They have a lower TDP, 65 watts, which is cool. And the C extension means that they are multiplier unlocked.
Okay.
Because
the C means that?
Means it has an unlocked multiplier.
Because they couldn't just stick with K that has been working
because
for so
using
long?
a K again would have been
too easy.
Too simple for people.
What?
And you got to throw a C in there.
I mean, I get that they both make the same sound potentially, but I don't.
What's wrong with this being a 5670K and a 5770K? What's wrong with that? There's no other CPUs named that. That would make everything much more simple to me, and I'd be like, oh, it's just another CPU with the blah, blah.
Clearly that was an engineer choice and not a marketing choice.
So here's a layout of the different ones that are available. All right, so there's more socketed CPUs than just the 2 ones I was talking about. There's a 5575R and a 5675R and a 5775R that are not multiplier over unlocked, and the R means. Oh, the R is BGA. Never mind, R is BGA.
Oh, that's all.
So I'm right. There are only 2 socketed desktop socket 1150
LGA processors.
LGA 1150 that will fit with Z97 motherboards that I'm assuming will probably need some kind of BIOS update to do it. Lower TDP and overclockable. Now these are running at lower frequencies out of the gate, 3.3 gigahertz and 3.7 gigahertz than the predecessors. But yeah, I think I saw something somewhere that I'm sorry I didn't set aside that was overclocking these, and that showed a pretty decent overclock on them.
They saw that the flagship SKU overclocks to 4.8 on air.
Okay.
which is pretty damn good.
Did somebody in chat post it? Oh, no,
nope,
no.
it's in the article.
Oh, it's in the article.
Earlier this week, we already...
If I read the article, I would have known that, I'm sure. No, I read this article.
Yes.
But then the 5775C is $480. It's like, I feel like Intel is trying to like poop on their Broadwell desktop SKUs or something. I don't know.
On the Broadwell desktop SKUs?
These two.
Why are they pooping? Well, yeah, I mean...
I don't know, they just...
Unless the performance yields something closer to like a 5820K, I mean, maybe that's why they branded it in the 5000s, because of the performance similarity.
Why would you pay $480 for a 4-core hyper-threaded CPU when you can get a 5820K for less than that? Even with DDR4 memory coming down, I don't know.
Maybe if you're upgrading from Z97 platform and you don't want to invest in DDR4 and a new motherboard.
But anyone on Z97, if you got Z97, unless you upgraded from Z87 and you already had like a 4770K or a 4670K, like you don't. I don't know. It's not that big of an upgrade.
It definitely targets a very niche market.
Yeah,
not many people are going to be interested in
so
either of these SKUs.
here's my thought on these CPUs. Intel promised us that they would have Broadwell socketed CPUs that would fit in Z97 motherboards, and I think this is just them being like, "Here, we did it, just like we said." We're 6 months later than people originally thought, and we've got Skylake coming out in like 2 months anyway, so
right.
who cares? But here, we didn't lie to you guys.
Yeah.
I don't know. I'd be interested to see how these overclock a little bit, but still, I mean, that $480.
How much is the i5?
It doesn't say, but if it's
like
anything, if it's $350, then why would you get that over 4790K, which is 4 cores hyper-threaded, and you could probably overclock a bit, and all you're really gaining is like maybe some TDP or something like that. I don't know.
I don't understand.
Anyway, all right. That's the end of my tech news.
Woo!
And it was a long tech news segment, and that was intentional because my next segment...
That was the whole hour.
Really? Have we gone?
Almost.
We've gone for quite a while. That's
45
okay.
minutes.
All right, time for some sword fight.
Sword fightage.
Yay, sword fight.
All right, what are we doing?
As you can maybe tell by the lower thirds. All right, we're going to have a sword fight argument.
Okay.
And Kyle in his half of the show already talked about Witcher 3 and NVIDIA's Gameworks initiative. Now, if you guys don't know what this is, Kyle will explain it to you.
Again?
I don't know. You did it before. Seemed to go okay.
I'm going to tell them to go watch part 1 because I'm hoarding views at that point.
What about the live people right now who weren't here for your first half of the show?
We will be re-uploading both parts tomorrow.
Okay. If you want
a brief rundown, Gameworks is NVIDIA's optimization technology program that they administer to game developers to enhance their in-game effects, things like lighting and shadows and hair and all that kind of shit. But unlike AMD's Gaming Evolved program, where they openly share all of their source code for all their various technologies, NVIDIA is kind of hoarding all of their technology to themselves, and they're telling these developers, don't share what we're giving you to AMD or other competitors that do what we do. They're making it proprietary, and they're putting all of their technology inside of a black box, so to speak, which means people on the outside can't see what's going on. And that's affecting PC gamers like you and I negatively in certain ways, because as shown from The Witcher 3, which launched a few days ago, AMD GPU users were having a hard time getting decent performance when enabling Hairworks, which is one of the hair enhancing effects that's owned by NVIDIA Gameworks. So it's very controversial. Is NVIDIA holding back not just developers, but the PC gaming community as a whole?
So in In this situation, NVIDIA's failure to work more... NVIDIA's failure to allow AMD access to what they had created for Hairworks to work with via Gameworks for Witcher 3 resulted in people with AMD graphics cards, when they tried to play Witcher 3, and enable the nicer effects like Hairworks, resulting in a much greater performance hit than you typically expect from something like making the hair look a bit shinier and more flowier or that sort of thing. Now, the sort of smaller issue of Witcher 3 and people having difficulty playing that game with the Gameworks technology has sort of brought attention back to NVIDIA's Gameworks initiative overall. And this is also something that, this is why we're discussing it in SWORDFIGHT, is because if you ask NVIDIA to describe Gameworks, they will describe it in very glowing terms, and they will describe it as an initiative that they do to help game developers to better develop their games and bring you a better experience overall. But are they limiting the access to this technology or the source code in such a way that really hurts gamers who aren't actively purchasing NVIDIA hardware? And if that is the case, is that a legitimate or okay thing to do? Now, I've boiled down this more complex question to a much simpler question for you guys, which is just Gameworks. Yes or no? And if you guys haven't participated in SWORDFIGHT before, Kyle and I will be arguing both sides. We'll each pick a side, and we'll kind of argue against each other. In the meantime, you can either answer immediately if you already know your thoughts on this, or you can wait for us to argue, and maybe we'll sway your decision. In the meantime, I'm going to post this link in chat. Go over and check out the straw poll, and you can vote. And then we'll be coming back to this in just a few moments, and we'll be hearing what you all thought on it, and maybe who won the argument. We used to think it was like our arguments determines the decision, but what we realized is that most people just click the link and vote immediately, and what we say actually has no impact on it at all.
Of course.
So, all right, there's your question, and we already lined this up beforehand, right?
I think so.
All right, so I'm gonna play devil's advocate, and I'm gonna take NVIDIA's side on this one, and I'm gonna say Gameworks yes. Kyle's gonna say Gameworks no, and I'm gonna make you go first.
Okay.
Since you already knew that.
All right. Well, apart from some of the other things that I was kind of mentioning earlier, I just think that first of all, I feel like it's unfair. I feel like NVIDIA is kind of playing dirty in some respects, especially when AMD is being so cooperative and making all of their source code publicly available. I think that NVIDIA might be a little bit trying to cash in a little bit on the opportunity of saying like, hey, like this game doesn't run really well with your Team Red card. Maybe you should have bought an NVIDIA card, because all of our technologies that are in this game that we supply the developers with, they're really optimized for NVIDIA GPUs and not so much AMD cards. And I could easily see this leading to certain developers either refusing to work with NVIDIA because they know that their game won't run well on half of the systems out there, which is a problem. So, I mean, how does that affect like the long-term effects? Like, I could foresee that certain games in the future might not even, and they were talking about this on Reddit, and I completely agree. If NVIDIA continues going down this route, it could potentially mean that you might start seeing PC games that are only available for one video card or the other. And that would be a sad day for everyone, I think. Because a developer is not going to want to release a game that performs like shit on a certain GPU or a certain manufacturer's card or hardware. They're going to say, well, shit, if it's going to perform 50% less on Team Red system, then why don't we just make this game for Team Green? Later down the line, I could see that happening. Like, we've already come this far. We really want this game to come out, but we'd rather just not do it for AMD-based systems at all, as opposed to creating a game that runs like crap because the technology, because the hardware, because Team Red hardware isn't optimized for this proprietary source code. So I don't know. I think that makes a lot of sense when you think about it in the long run. But go ahead and try to argue why proprietary anything is better than not.
So, Kyle, I'm going to go ahead and explain why you're wrong and stupid, and I'm going to use your own words and your own arguments against you.
Okay.
This is how I operate here. Do you recall earlier in this very show when we were lauding praise upon AMD for their innovation and they're bringing new technology to market? We discussed, if you recall, integrating the IMC onto the CPU, integrating multiple cores onto CPUs. We've discussed recently even the integration of HBM, a high bandwidth memory, for example. Now, if I went to AMD as a representative of NVIDIA, as I'm representing myself right now, and said, hey, AMD, that HBM stuff, why don't you give all that to us? Do you think they would do it? Do you think they'd just hand over all this work that they had done to their direct competitor and say, here you go, NVIDIA, have at it. Enjoy. Take all this work and research we've done, use it for your own benefit and your own profit, which is essentially what AMD and anyone who's even insinuating the Gameworks is a bad thing is doing. Gameworks was designed to help people. It was designed to help developers. It was designed to help them make better games for all of you to play and enjoy. And you know what? If AMD can't keep up, that's just their problem. The other thing to consider here is that we would not have new technologies. We would not have the access to these things that are taking the gaming that we do on a daily basis and that we love so much to the next level. Consider, if you will, G-Sync. Now, Kyle, I've heard you talk about G-Sync before, and I think I've even heard you say something like G-Sync, or at least variable frame rate technology, is the future. And that I'm sure you've agreed with me, at least when I've said it, and that variable frame rate technology is the thing that when you play a game with and without it, it makes a night and day difference. Now, NVIDIA, through perseverance, fortitude, honor, and integrity, pushed forward with G-Sync.
You can't even say that with a straight face.
Pushed forward with G-Sync in order to bring it to the masses a full year or more prior to any competitor, and introduced this level of gameplay and this immersive technology to other people. Now, granted, the also rans are catching up. They're kind of working their way towards getting there, and we at NVIDIA appreciate being in the position to spur the market towards greater things, to encourage those who are working on development of products to work even harder at those same things.
Sorry,
you're just yawning, asshole. And Kyle's an asshole. And here endeth my argument. All right, I think that was my best devil's advocate argument. Look, I'm watching your view of me saying these poignant words, and you just over there like.
No, you were very compelling. Very compelling.
I was.
Let's see how the straws did.
All right, so we're gonna see what you guys thought of this one.
Straw
poll. Straw poll. Let's get a little refresh going on first. All right. Whoa, that's very close.
What? No, it's not.
What?
What's close?
The nose and the. I mean, it's not like super close, but all right. Okay. So we see no got about 50% of the votes. We see yes got about 31% of the votes, and I threw in a variable in there.
I know, I saw.
Which I thought was kind of funny. Which I knew just kind of messed up the results overall. But all right, so yeah, I think it's pretty obvious, and if we haven't stated it already. When Kyle and I take opposite sides on Sword Fight, we typically are arguing in opposition to stuff we actually believe. But nevertheless, I think what I really think is I think NVIDIA should be a little bit more open. I think that's what it comes down to. I think they should be like AMD is often seen as the company that works more with like the open standards.
Yeah.
And I think NVIDIA does that like just the tiniest little bit when they can, like when it's convenient.
Right, exactly.
And I'd like to see them do it a little bit more when it's like, this doesn't make good business decision, but it makes good business sense, but this makes sense as a like...
For the greater good.
For the greater good, or like if it's going to get you a lot of positive response from people,
right? Even
if it's like money might not necessarily line up with that, then I think that's still important. All right.
Hashtag NVIDIA's a dickhole.
Oops, wrong button.
JK.
Uh-oh. Uh-oh.
Battery's running low. I forgot to plug it in.
You didn't plug in?
All right, you have 10% of battery life of time left, Paul, before my laptop dies.
Really? Oh, wow. I didn't...
Measuring the show in battery life.
I almost thought I messed up there, but I didn't. All right. We have one more argument here on Sword Fight.
All right.
This one is also involves some shameless self-promotion, so let's go ahead and do that first.
Okay.
I have been building a couple systems recently, and I kind of alluded at the beginning of the show that I would be posting videos on those systems in the coming, say, next week and a half.
Yeah.
So stay tuned for that. But nevertheless, I'm going to show you guys those systems right now, and I'm going to use at least one of those systems as a topic for debate. So this is a system...
Can I run and get my power brick really quick?
Oh, yeah.
Or can I siphon yours just for the rest of the show since we don't have much left? You can
Actually, yeah,
run on battery.
let's do that. That would make more sense.
Ah!
I thought you were using that as a sneaky way to go and take a pee break.
No, I would never do that.
No, that would be very dishonest.
It would.
All right. So this is the build I did, you guys. I posted it on my Instagram, which you guys can check me out. It's Paul Hardware.
Pimp Paul's PC.
So this is a build in the BitPhoenix Aegis.
I always think you're saying I always think of the word ageist when I hear ageist.
Ageist?
Yeah.
Like you're racist against old people? Is that an ageist?
Not just old people, but you're an ageist. That's a
I'm
thing.
an ageist. I'm racist against anyone who's a different age than me.
Yeah, it's a thing. It's a or not hiring someone because they're old.
Those ageists.
Ageists.
Man, they're dicks.
You never heard
All
that?
right, so.
Well, so how's this ageist case working out?
So the case had its pros and its cons.
Yeah.
Overall, I liked it. It was a different build than I've done in quite some time. Okay. Which is why I wanted to discuss it on Sword Fight. Because if you look at this system, it's very, I want to say, brightly colored. Mm-hmm. I mean, it's got this kind of candy coating blue going on the outside. I went with the blue and black primarily overall, and I spent a fair amount of thought on making sure everything coordinated, specifically when it comes to aesthetics. So that's why I chose this Enermax cooler, which is all black but has a blue LED fan.
Is your fan mounted on top of the power supply? Is the fan up top or is
No. That's the fan on the power supply is facing down, but the top of this Fury power supply has kind of a circle indentation and a BitPhoenix kind of embossed logo on the top. Actually, this case is one of the ones I was talking about. Comes with a cover for the power supply. But I didn't use it in this build because after dropping this power supply in, it matched so well, and it has completely sleeved cables. Borrowed this power supply from Jay, by the way, because BitPhoenix is supposed to send me the 550 watt model, but it wasn't going to arrive in time, so I grabbed this one from Jay, and it just everything lined up. I was like, man, I was going to send this in for Pimp My PC, but I would have
tore it up.
I know.
Tore you a new one.
So, but yeah, so here's, going back to the sword fight thing.
Okay.
The question is, when it comes to PCs and PC aesthetics, most of all, do you prefer subtlety or kind of a low-key vibe, or I want to say kind of the Arctic Panther, but that has a bit of bling because it's, got the white going on, and I'm going to put some LEDs in that. But do you prefer something that's more subtle, or do you prefer something that's really blingy and over the top? So we're talking about more sedate colors, not as much bright colors. You're looking at probably black and white, or a more standard black and red kind of thing, or something like that. Or something that's more like this, where it's this color, or you're talking bright LEDs, all that good stuff, versus the alternative. The way I phrased it in the straw poll is, when it comes to PC aesthetics, what do you prefer, subtlety or bling? And I will post that in chat right now so you guys can let us know what you think. Subtlety or bling? And Kyle, we have not decided which of these sides we're going to argue yet.
I wish there was like the last sword fight we just did. I almost wish there was a third option that kind of avoids committing to either side.
Something in the middle?
Because
no, sword fight must be controversial. We must take opposite sides.
Okay, I'm gonna go. Since I took the the kind of easy one last time. I'll take the harder one this time. I feel like this would be the harder one. I'm going to go with Bling.
Okay.
I think most people are going to go minimalistic, but...
Minimal, subtle.
But I'll try to argue Bling. So I went first last time, so you go first.
Okay. All right. Let me explain why anything you're about to say is wrong. What you're about to advocate is spending additional money on your computer for nothing, or basically for like something you'll glance at every once in a while, or maybe like right after you first build it. But after that, it's really going to serve no useful purpose. Like Bling, when you're talking about like LEDs or like side panel windows or like all that kind of thing, they're always an added expense with the computer. These fans that I used in this, for example, did not come with the system. They would need to be purchased separately, and you know, a basic fan is going to cost you $10. A nice fan is going to cost you 15 to 25, especially when you consider LEDs. LED strips are going to be like $8 to $15, depending on how that goes. And all this does is like add a little light show in the system, which really, when it comes down to it, doesn't really affect your performance. Lights don't affect performance. Maybe swapping out a fan might give you a little bit more performance here or there, but if the goal is to like buy the fan because it's like got an LED on it or something, it's just not really doing a whole lot. So whereas I can appreciate the people who take the extra time and effort to take their system, dress it up and make it look pretty, ultimately when I think it comes down to is like, if my system costs $100 less than yours and it performs faster, then I think I won.
All right, and let me tell you why you would have lost.
Okay.
Because building a PC isn't strictly just about building something that functions. Building a PC is very personal. It's kind of in the name. And that means you get to personalize it and customize it in your own way where you actually get to express your own personality and kind of translate that into your PC by, you know, adding little characteristics to it that really make it your own. Anyone can build a PC that looks like any other computer out there, you know, that has all of the essential components. But it's kind of sad to me when I see a nice, well put together computer that has no personality. And that's where Bling can sometimes come in handy and kind of make it more unique to the owner. And you know, when you're an enthusiast, you typically you build a personal relationship with your computer. I know it sounds weird, but you get kind of sentimental about it. And I think
those late night phone calls.
Those late night phone calls, you know, those long
no,
dinners.
No, you hang up. No, you hang up.
But yeah, so I think because it is kind of like you have this relationship, right, man and machine relationship with your computer, you should have the right, and it should be a fun and exciting process to maybe spend a little more money here and there when you can afford it, to kind of sweeten it up, to kind of amp it up a little bit and give it some so-called bling every once in a while. And of course, you know, a PC, it's only done when you want it to be. It never has to be finished. It's like fashion, right? So if you can't afford to bling it out the day you build it, you can maybe save up for it and later down the line. You can always bling it out a later time when you have a little bit of extra side change for it. You know, you have to do it all at once. So, and that's kind of part of the fun, is being able to build upon it little by little over time and seeing how it evolves over that period. And that's why you're wrong.
People would be like, "Whoa, Kyle, you're saying I should have a relationship with my computer?"
Don't put anything into your computer that's
there's
not standard form factor.
There's lots of add-ons and accessories for computers that you can put on there.
Yeah.
Maybe open up those 5 1/4 bays if you know what I've. No, let's see what you guys think. This is one that I brought up that I was like, I'm with you. I'm like on the fence about.
Yeah.
If you go back far enough, I was all about performance, and then I started to gradually be more and more like, well, okay, it looks kind of cool.
Yeah.
And now, like, I'm like, well, I want it to look cool, but like, I make videos on computers, so it's supposed to look cool, right? So,
right.
But yeah, the DVD. Max says the DVD-ROM tray. That's what you should really be going for. But all right, let's see what you guys think here. When it comes to PC aesthetics, what do you prefer, subtlety or bling?
I'm going minimal.
All right. Oh yeah,
Yep.
we got minimalism is taking about 70% of the votes here, although we do have a good 30% of holdouts there for the shiny chromed LED covered stuff, which is going on.
Yep.
Yeah, honestly, I think if you're building your own computer, then that's a labor of love in and of itself.
Yep.
And if you want to go the extra mile and make it visually yours as well, then you should go ahead and do that. All right.
Do that.
Now, my side of the show usually would have 4 segments, and we've done 2 so far. And I have a 3rd segment, but we're already running a little bit long. And my 3rd segment was really a cop-out anyway. So we're going to skip right over that, and we're going to do a little bit of Q&A.
Sweet.
Because, don't worry, guys. You're not missing anything. We're going to do a little bit of Q&A, and then we're going to cut out. Now, before we go any further, I want to plug, but also not plug, our after party that we usually do an hour and a half to 2 hours after we close off the live show.
Yep.
Kyle, were you planning on after partying today?
Yes, I was.
This evening. Okay. I, as mentioned earlier in the show, am leaving very soon for a trip of the international variety.
Okay.
And so I will not be planning to after party this evening. I'm still going to say there's a chance I might jump in, possibly to Kyle's stream, and just say what's up and maybe play briefly. It's really depends on how things go in the next few hours.
You should just hustle your ass off as soon as we cut the stream. Do everything you need to take care of, and then just stream for 10 hours until your flight leaves. Just stay up till 5 in the morning.
That would be fantastic, but I don't know if I'm going to be able to pull that off.
All right, well, we'll see what he can do.
Yeah. But anyway, other than that, guys, send us some questions. If you guys have questions, you can post them in chat.
Yes.
If you have questions and you want to tweet them at us, our Twitter handles are right down here and here. Forever a Kyle and Paul Hardware. Ryan Waylian asks, non-computer related thoughts on the California drought. He feels sad and his relatives live here. I also feel sad about the California drought.
It's very sad.
It's definitely something that it's weird how the drought plays out sometimes, because I feel like the drought it is very severe right now. I feel like I didn't hear that much about it until more recently.
Right.
Past 2-3 months. So yeah, we've been trying to cut back on our water usage. I've cut back on the lawn watering. It does it way less frequently now. It's probably going to start to die when it gets hotter here.
Yeah.
We have had a couple late season storms. We just had a storm come through this past week. We got some rain, which was nice.
Yeah.
It was very cold too, which means it's got some snowfall up in the mountains, which is very key for keeping the water flowing throughout the year. And we are told that we're moving back into an El Nino cycle again.
Yeah.
Which means this next season, and even possibly this season and over the summer, we should be getting a lot more rainfall. Now, granted, that has other repercussions, as in El Nino usually means a lot of more severe storms for various areas and that sort of thing. So it might be like out of the frying pan into the fire or something like that. Who knows?
Right.
But yeah,
my grandpa, he watches the news religiously every day, and apparently on CBS or something, they were asking people to send in their ideas for how to solve the drought problem. And for the past 3 weeks, my grandpa will come into my room while I'm working or something, filming a video, and he'll have a drawing on a piece of paper, note paper, or he'll just have the idea in his head, and he'll just be like, what do you think of this idea? How we could solve the drought?
Yeah.
And just, I've just gotten to the point where I just have learned to tune it out. Because they're pretty ridiculous, but occasionally really hilarious at the same time. I can't think of anything at the top of my head right now. I think there was take all the pool water.
Yeah.
I don't know, just crazy stuff. But it's serious. It's on the news. That's why you and I probably haven't heard much of it, is because it's on the news and we don't really watch too much TV.
I don't watch TV too much.
But they're asking regular people to provide solutions, which means they're really shit out of luck. And
there's a lot of little random things you can do. I mean, I've been doing stuff when I'm brushing my teeth. I turn on the water to get it wet, and then I turn it off.
Yeah.
Then I'm brushing and brushing. I only try to turn the water on when it needs to be on.
Yeah.
My parents do a thing where they have a bucket in the shower. So when you turn the shower on and wait for the water to get hot, they fill the bucket. And then when the water's hot, they take their shower, and then they take the bucket and bring it out and water the plants with it.
Oh.
Just one of those little things where I was like, yeah, that makes sense. That's a lot of wasted water when you're just like, I'm going to turn on the hot, and then I got to wait for like 2-3 minutes for it to actually get hot or something.
Yep.
That kind of thing. But anyway, yeah, so that's kind of where we're at on the drought. I'm really hoping this is the last year that it's this severe.
Yeah.
And I think we can hopefully get through this summer, especially with some of the late season storms we had. Zach or Zachimus asked, what was the third cop-out segment that I mercilessly abolished? It was called What's Your Favorite?
Yeah.
It's a segment we've done once before. I think the first or second time we did the show where I just came up with a bunch of categories and was like, what's your favorite motherboard?
Yeah.
Or that sort of thing. And it took me all of
3 minutes.
A minute and a half to like fill out 5 or 6 subjects for it that I was going to ask things, but don't worry, we'll bring it back in a future episode. I'm sure.
Victor SCU asked, PC antivirus, haven't researched it in a while, and I run Windows Defender right now. Thoughts? Go with the free AVG Avast or pay for something better. What's better? There's a lot of good free software out there. Right now, I'm using Windows Defender myself, along with I stopped using AVG because it started doing weird things like putting toolbars on my browser or changing my homepage.
I hate that.
So don't do that. Don't use AVG.
Well, like the free ones, I feel like there's this constant fluctuation, and like people will come and they'll do the tests, and depending on like what time of year it is or whatever, like one will perform better than the other.
Mm-hmm.
I also use Windows Defender or Microsoft Security Essentials if you're on Windows 7.
Yeah.
I have pretty well-tuned browsing habits.
Yeah.
Like I'm
you know what to click, know what not to click, or what to download.
And granted, that's not 100% security, and Windows Defender and Microsoft Security Essentials do not have as high rankings as they did, especially a couple years ago. But it's been pretty functional for me, I guess.
Yeah. It's been functional for me too. Like I
know Norton has come a long way. They were really bloated for a while, but I think in the past couple of years they've gotten better.
Although Norton was installed on the MSI laptop I was reviewing yesterday, and this little lower third pop-up kept.
Well, if that's because it's the Norton like trial that keeps wanting you to pay the money for
trial,
it. But yeah, I mean, if you're actually buying.
Super annoying.
All right, Snowy Death 1 asks, what are your thoughts on the future of PC gaming with all the stuff that's currently happening? That is a fairly generic question, Snowy Death 1. I think the future of PC gaming is very bright. I'm hoping the future of DIY PCing is equally bright, and I hope that there's enough of an enthusiast community who's into it, who wants performance at all times, that the built-in stuff isn't good enough, and that the companies like Intel and AMD keep needing to make socketed processors and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think what we're looking at right in the near future is kind of a bump up to 4K and similar resolutions. And then I'm hoping what happens beyond that is that we'll move towards more with what Scott Wasson from Tech Report calls an emphasis more on better pixels rather than more pixels.
Mm-hmm.
When it comes to actual like stuff like shading effects afterwards and like color depth when it comes to the panels themselves.
Make it look prettier all around.
Technology, like I mean G-Sync and FreeSync, I mean that is something that's going to become pretty much a standard, I think, within the next year or two, and I think that'll really benefit a lot of people.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I think it's really bright, and it's something that I'm really excited to keep looking at. And yeah, I'm glad there's so many companies making games to entertain people, and I'm also glad that there's such an infrastructure of like reviewers and that kind of thing to kind of educate the audience on like what's good and what's not good, what companies are behaving well, what companies are not behaving well. I think that's very important to keep the quality up of that in general.
Yeah, and let's do maybe one or two more.
Okay.
It's the Burns 327 asks, how does it feel doing this show now compared to the first few episodes? More relaxed and tuned, or still we don't know what the hell we're doing, type of thing. I'm gonna say we have kind of gotten into the swing of things.
Can I say both?
Yeah, I mean I would say for the most part we're like 85% solid. We know what we're doing.
Yeah.
We know how to set up the stream. There's still quirks here and there because we just kind of switched recently from OBS to XSplit, but we're still figuring out kinks there. But for the most part, we have a really good understanding, I think, of the structure of the show, which is very important.
Yeah.
Just kind of the fundamental layout of how it works and whatnot. I think that is pretty, we're pretty confident in that. I think it's just those little finishing touches that we need to like work on over time. Like maybe amp up the lower thirds, maybe have some more stuff that's actually showing underneath the video player on our Twitch page. Things like that. Have some mod bots for you guys. All the little finishing touches that make that differentiate an amateur Twitch channel from a professional one, we're still trying to get the hang of that.
Yeah.
But as far as the show itself of awesome hardware and doing the show and getting the stories, we have that down pretty well. So.
Yeah, I feel like we could come in here like with zero preparation and sit down for 2 hours and just ramble about stuff.
Yeah.
And like, I think you guys would be cool with that. And I would be cool with that, honestly, too, if that was all we were able to do. Yeah. But I think what Kyle and I both really want to do is just spend a little bit more time to refine things, to coordinate things, and to make things just, to kind of keep the show moving along, to keep it, like, hopefully a little bit distinct from some of the other shows that are out there.
Yeah.
But ultimately, I think we're both about just sitting down and, like, having a good time and hanging out with you guys.
Yeah.
And, like, as long as we can keep doing that, like, I'm happy. And I think being relaxed is very key. So I would say yes, relaxation and just being comfortable, very important. Listifiskern.
Don't say that again.
In Twitch chat asks, hey Paul, why are you traveling? I am traveling first to China. I will be doing this is my first trip to mainland China.
Yeah.
And this is a trip for, business pleasure. This is a trip for pleasure on the first half of it. I'll be checking out some antiquities and that sort of thing. The second half of the trip, I'll be coming to the Republic of China, the ROC. Wait, no. Yeah, the ROC, which is Taiwan. And I will be traveling there for Computex, which starts on June 2nd. Although I'm hopefully going to be starting to give you guys a little bit of content on like June 1st-ish. But yeah, I'm going there to do kind of some typical show coverage to some extent. I've gone to Computex the past couple years with Newegg, and I had a really, really good time there. I love Taiwan, Taipei, the people, the food there is awesome. The technology there at Computex in particular is like, it's like you take all the parts of CES that I actually am interested in, and you boil it down, and that's except there's more launches, more like PC centric stuff. And
do away with all the iPhone cases and all the crappy Bluetooth speakers.
Yeah,
it's just,
you get rid of the whole cars section of the show. Not that there's anything wrong with the cars section of the show.
Cars suck.
I'm less interested in that than
cars.
But yeah, that's my trip. So I'm going to be gone for a little bit. But I'll be doing some tweeting as much as I can. I got to see how I can deal with the Great Firewall of China. That should be interesting.
There you go.
But hey, we should cut this show off because Kyle's got to get home if he's going to do some after partying.
That's right. That's right. You guys can tune in at twitch.tv/AwesomeSauceNetwork. I'll be on maybe an hour and a half or so.
Yes. Yeah. In the meantime, if you're watching this on my channel and you haven't watched Kyle's first half of the show, do that. It's on Awesome Sauce Network. If you're curious about what's going on for the next few weeks here, the next 2 weeks, Kyle will be doing Awesome Sauce or Awesome Hardware by himself, or with a guest.
Yep.
He's leaving that very mysterious for you guys.
Yes.
I will be returning 3 weeks from today. I will be very jet lagged, but we'll be back in full force. In the meantime, we'll be bringing you some Computex coverage, and we'll have some videos in between. It'll be absolutely fantastic. But thank you guys for watching this show today.
Yep.
We really, really, really appreciate you guys being here. Hope you've learned a little bit, or at least had a laugh or two. And do you have any other closing words, Kyle?
We love you all.
We love you all.
Thank you guys for sticking with us week after week.
Oh, I wanted to say,
it's been fun.
I think we briefly mentioned this in Kyle's half of the show. I have some glassware coming very soon. It's actually probably going to be ready soon, but I'm going to be gone on my trip, so Yeah, but I'm very excited about it. I'm really happy to share with you guys. It involves a new logo and some other cool stuff like that.
Someone says you're getting a bong. The glassware, does that include a bong?
Bong bong. No.
Bong.
I just
two varieties of bong.
There was no bong involved. Not to my knowledge.
Paul's hard bong.
All right. Well, thanks for watching, guys. Subscribe to our channels, buy t-shirts, use our Amazon links, all that good stuff.
Yep. Thanks, guys. Have a good night.
See you later.
See ya.